Welcome
Sorry.
back to the Self Indulgent Podcast. I am your host, Mariah, and today is a very, very special day. There's lots of things happening. One, it is the first time ever that we have a guest on the podcast, and the guest just so happens to be my infamous best friend that I have probably talked about on every singular episode. She truly has taught me so much. That's why I talk about her so much. Her name is Brandy, aka Bacon Brand, aka Bacon Brand Book Reviews. And you guys should really check that out. That is her Instagram. She throws down in the kitchen. It really doesn't matter. I think the thing is baking, and but also she can cook. Like she has seriously had me reconsider the food that I buy on a daily basis just because I have seen it made from scratch at home. So, yeah, without further ado, hello, welcome, Brandy.
I should have asked what was the intro for me because that was too much. It's a bit much for me. Hey y'all, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. This is so, I don't know. It's weird, but
A
like
long
the good
time coming.
weird. I'm excited.
Yeah, we've been planning to do this for a while. We were supposed to do this when I went to visit last week when I went to New Orleans. That's where Brandy is. But you know what? We got caught up in the us time and the activities. So we decided that we're still gonna do it and we just said let's figure it out. Let's do it virtually. And so today we're just gonna shoot the shit. We have some thoughts on concepts that we can go over, but knowing us, this is totally just gonna probably take a life of its own. So we're not gonna hold ourselves to any kind of script or itinerary. I think we thought that we could start with how we met. Do you want to start
You're
that?
not gonna like what I say. Do you like to share? I don't know what
Okay.
the opposite of a friend zone is. Maybe
Oh,
acquaintance zone.
this is what you're talking about. I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
thought.
Mariah acquaintance zone with me for quite some time. But I love her. And sometimes you have to shoot your shot, even in friendships. Do it now, or else you may miss out on your best friend. Mariah's gonna give you the full rundown.
Yeah,
All of
this
it.
is
Go
this is
ahead.
this is this is what actually happens.
Hmm.
Basically,
Hmm.
to give more detail, I did not acquaintanceship friend zone her. I was just unaware, very oblivious. You start in grad school. And for me, coming to grad school was a big deal. A lot of us moved. Brandy moved pretty far for it. I only crossed a state over, but everybody for the most part was new, not knowing anybody. And so in year one, me and Brandy, I think, hung out a few times. Like we went to a party together. There might have been another group situation at some point, but we talked a little bit. I think we hit it off. Like there was nothing wrong, but in my brain, I kind of doubt often, I think, the social situations, the impact that I have on others and how others are actually feeling, seeing, perceiving me. And so I fear that I'm gonna overstep or over indulge and come off too strong. So I try to play it as cool as possible. And then there was a time where for my birthday, I went to DC and invited some people in the program and their partners, and Brandy was not one of them. And so then Brandy had set up this hang where me, her, and one other person hung out at my house. Brandy made it known that she was not happy about that. And I am forever grateful that she came on my neck that day, because the second she was like, yeah, I didn't like that. That wasn't cool. I felt some type of way that you did not invite me. I was like, whoa, I apologize. I had no idea that's how she felt about it. I didn't know she took me that seriously. And from that moment on, full permission to be myself and to be extra and to be in her face all the time. And it was history from there.
Yes, I would just like to add, Mariah made me seem like a bitch. Like I was just like, girl, what? But that's not the case, guys. I
Yeah, she
probably
was
did
not a
come on.
bitch.
I probably was quite
No,
direct.
bitchy.
Yeah, it was more so just like, I want to spend more time with you. And I was kind of like
Right.
sad that I didn't get to spend your birthday with you. Like I texted somebody and was like, oh my God, what are y'all doing for Mariah's birthday if you're doing anything? And they're like, oh, we're going over here. We can get you a sleeping bag. So yeah, but all of it at the end
Oh
of the
my
day is just a
God.
matter of just like, being
And Brandy
direct
takes
and
birthday
telling people.
seriously,
I
very
do take birthday
seriously.
seriously. Do we know the exact days apart that we are? Weeks, but like
I think
days?
it's exactly 2 weeks.
Probably I can't count, so
I'll look while you talk.
yeah. And from there, it was a matter of me wanting to understand how I could show up so she can understand, like, no, I want to hang out with you. So, like, we even talked about, like, so what do you need from me in order for this friendship to work? Because I don't know, if you haven't met Mariah in person, you are missing out. And that's to put it in the most mildest way possible. It's like she is sunlight in a person. She is so her, and I just love her so
Wow.
much. So, you know, you get your little feelings hurt when you don't get invited to things. But you gotta tell people. Got to communicate what it
Yes.
is that you're feeling. Don't get in
Yes.
your
I
own
think
way.
Brandy taught me a really valuable lesson about being able to hold people accountable in healthy and loving ways. Like, I think she was able to hold me accountable in that moment. So again, she wasn't bitchy about it. It was very much like, listen, like, this is, I thought we was cool, like, this kind of, and she just approached it in a very like direct, still direct, but loving, where like the intention behind it was understood. And I think that's really important. We're also 13 days apart, by the way.
Oh my gosh. So
Um,
close to
yep.
okay. Love that.
Yep, 13 days. That's how we met in grad school, and that is really where our friendship took off. Brandy lived 4 minutes away, around the corner for real, and she was at my house all the time. I took up all the time I could until eventually she left me. So we had like a year together before she bounced up out of here, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And so here we are now. Wow,
Now I have my
time flies.
forever friend. And it's so funny, like while we're talking like this, it reminds me of where that first class was that we were talking about, and you and I got partnered together. You had all the
Yeah.
shoes in the background. I'm like, wow, I feel like we haven't been
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
Yes, true.
And that was 2021. So fast forward 4
Yeah.
years, and that's weird. Love that. Love us.
Wow. That's crazy. I'm really excited for this episode because a lot of the episodes that I've done on friendship, accountability, and what it means to be a good friend, they've done really well. People right now are thinking more about community, friendship, and are feeling lonely. People generally feel lonely and don't know what to do and how to connect with people. And I think that is also hard in like our age demographic, making friends. Like, I've talked about it a lot. Like, I've had a hard time. Brandy's like my first, I feel like, real healthy best friend that I've had. And it's hard. I'm 26, turning 27. So I can understand how hard it can be. And also with how busy we are. I think that plays a role in navigating that and building authentic relationships.
I would even say we don't have guides for real. I think for some of us, we have our moms, or you don't have your mom like me. So you may see
Right.
friendship in that regard, but you may also look at media for it. So you can watch shows like Girlfriends, Insecure, shows like that.
Right.
And they, I think, show a lot of the more like, I don't want to say toxic. They show situations that are less than favorable.
Right.
Sometimes you can feel really detached from it. But honestly, they be kind of relatable because it really do be the principle. They may blow it up, but it still be the principle at the
There's
end of the
truth.
day for a lot of people. I think I would wrap all that up to say that people in our generation, they don't really know how to be good friends. You know what I mean? Especially if you got the disease to please, much like me, where you are doing all this people pleasing, you're almost not even showing up authentically, or you're thinking that you're showing up authentically, but in reality, if you really sit down and think about it, you don't really want to do that. But your friends
Right.
don't know that. So,
Funny that you bring up the shows, because I think in my last therapy session, we were talking about friendship, and she asked me what I watched growing up, because it wasn't just friendship we were talking about, but relations to other people, and how often when I was younger, because I wasn't allowed to go out much, I did a lot of fantasizing in my head about what I think like can be like for me in the future, and just daydreaming about the types of interactions I was hoping to have with people. And so she asked me, what did I watch? Because I was saying that, growing up, a lot of that was probably informed by TV. And I'm thinking more like middle school age, like what was some of the things I was watching. I was definitely a Disney kid. So I brought up like That's So Raven and like Wizards of Waverly Place, like those types of shows. And like she did reflect back, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you see Raven with two best friends and they're there for each other and they're supportive. I think we were trying to get at what is my expectation? What am I looking for? And how big do I want my circle? How many close relationships that are comparable and as intentional as my relationship with Brandy am I actually looking for? And I don't think that there's necessarily a right number, but what I do know is that I do need more support and I would like more community. I think I have the capacity for it. And I think that is where I'm feeling the discomfort because I have a lot of capacity for it and I just don't have it right now.
Mhm. I think that's such a good reminder of you haven't met all the people that will love you yet. It really helps you to hold that space of, okay, ooh, I need, like, you're aware of what it is that you need. And it's honest, you have to also be open and receptive to it. Even with friendship breakups, they're hard, but it makes space for someone else for you to love, especially when you're really intentional about friendships and you
Love
love your
that.
friendship. No, really, when you love so hard and you really show up for your people, you don't have the capacity to give it to 20 different people. You have to be kind of finite in what you give. One person walks out the door, that just means somebody else is on the way in. It may be some time, but they'll be worth it. And that's okay.
Right. What
That kind of reminds me, you walked in as I was escorting someone out. So it was just like, no, that's
is
real.
well, that's so funny. I was just about to like vaguely just kind of pick something I haven't really talked about in depth. I've talked about like redefining your inner circle, right? That was probably, well, no longer. It is no longer the reigning most popular episode I had, but it was for a while, redefining your circle and when to like kind of say goodbye. But I don't think I've talked about it in, for me, it was a lot of, I think I was talking about some of the more superficial relationships and people you need to separate yourself from. I don't think I've like talked in depth about friendship breakups. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to your experience and how to do it in a way that you can feel good and comfortable about like what you've learned.
I definitely think I read a lot of friendship books. There's two real ones, Sisterhood Heals and Fighting for Our Friendship. In Sisterhood Heals, there's a chapter that talks about friendship breakups and how to navigate them. So definitely check that out. But I think for me, what has been extremely healing is really leaning in to who I do have. You know what I mean? Like, I think Mariah has heard more than enough of kind of what my friendship breakups have kind of looked like. But it has been extremely helpful to have someone that I know loves me and be able to kind of talk through things and have that validation of like, I'm not tripping. It's not me. It's not you. You are not the one. So lean into the people that you have. If it's not a best friend, lean into a sister, a cousin, whoever it is that you have. Just kind of talk through it. Like, I'm not saying shit talk them necessarily and be like, oh, fuck
Right.
them. Blah, 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 blah. Ooh, I hope that my sisters do not listen to this. Anyways, it's not necessarily about talking bad about them, but it can be helpful to kind of work through and break it down piece by piece. Myself and Mariah mentioned we're both Virgos, so we do a lot of overanalyzing. It's helpful to have someone that thinks like me, but also can provide me feedback of like, okay, well maybe you could think about it this way, and da 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 da. I can't emphasize how important it is to really lean into your village and into your community during a harder season like that because friendship breakups are extremely difficult and they're very complex. I think
Right.
oftentimes people don't really understand the complexities of friendship.
I'm gonna say, let's get into that next.
Um, because well, I was looking at I was on Substack. If you ain't got a Substack, get into it. One of the posts that said, shout out to my homegirls, they're the blueprint. They showed me how to love and how to platonically love. If you're able to platonically love, then you're able to romantically love. I think so many people miss that platonic part and like they underestimate the value that friendships bring So, why did I bring all of this up? I don't remember. I think I was just gonna continue to go on about how much I love my best friend. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be without my Mimi.
The feeling is very mutual. And I think to add to the complexity of a friendship breakup, everybody listening should really give yourself the time to feel the phases of it because honestly, it's a loss, right? So you might experience the phases of grief
No,
more,
you absolutely
right?
will.
Yeah. Just like between anger, acceptance, like just I should know the stages of grief, don't tell nobody. But it really is heavy and I think that you'll be surprised at the waves of emotion because it's going to be like any other loss and it's going to feel intense at times. You might feel very fuck them sometimes and then you might get all that anger out and then a month or 2 months later you're like, "Fuck, I miss them. Actually, I really do love them." And that's normal and I think that's totally okay. I think I've done a lot of villainizing myself or shaming myself for having really strong feelings about people. And I got a lot of fire in my chart, so I be popping off at the mouth. I try to do it with people who love me and are safe people, right? You got to process things, but then feeling so much shame and guilt once that feeling passes, and kind of beating myself up about maybe I was a bad friend, right? Like, because my intent, the way that I was speaking and feeling was so intensely negative. I just felt really bad for it after because at the root, anger is the surface, it's not the primary emotion. Stuff underneath that. Remember that when you're feeling so angry, it can be easy to react on TV, right? All these shows that we see, there's a lot of crazy situations happening. There's so much representation of just like these react, react, react. I think it's okay to have a reaction, but maybe contain where you display that so you can process as much as possible before having harder conversations or real conversations because there's so much underneath anger.
I'll never forget when I was talking to my undergrad professor, and he was telling me how one of his things is anger. He was like, anger is just such a cheap emotion. It's so easy to get to. People often aren't willing to really dig deep and like explore what it is because under that anger, it's a lot of hurt. Like, this person caused you to feel such a negative emotion. And I think if you're not exploring what it is that you're experiencing, it's so easy to just be like, oh, I'm pissed off, I'm mad, I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, yeah, but you can also be hurt. Like, you could be sad that the person that you called a friend, a best friend, did that to you, you know? And it makes sense that you're hurt. And it also makes sense that you're angry. But being able to distinguish which feeling or which emotion you're actually feeling, I think is very imperative.
Mm-hmm.
And heavy on the it's a process. Like, it's not always gonna feel good. You might be like, okay, I'll release them with love and light one day, and 2 days from now you could be like, you know what, actually I take all that back. Run it back, give it here. Fuck them, TBH. And it's just like, that's okay. But have
Right.
your people that you can kind of work through that with. Also, writing a letter. I think sometimes people often be like, oh, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. It is that deep. If it
Yeah.
was not that deep, you would not be having such a negative reaction to it. And that's okay. I don't know why we be so afraid to say, like, you made me feel this way. Like, that did not feel good to me. If it's someone that, loves you, cares about you, then they'll take that into consideration and be like, wow, never meant to do that. You and I have had instances like that where it's a matter of being clear about what it is you're feeling
Right.
so that they know and so that they can not do that anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
friendship also requires a lot of vulnerability, and that is what the girls are not ready for necessarily.
Right.
But I think that also comes with being more self aware.
Right. And we are all about awareness here on the Self Indulgent Podcast. I feel like I don't know how I can talk about awareness in so many different ways. I feel like that is the shit that we really focus on here. And I think too, like I want to come back to the levels of complexity and just like again, if you're able to love platonically, you're able to love romantically. There has been some rhetoric online about this back and forth between I'm sorry, I don't take my friends as serious as my man. I understand some of the conversation that's happening mainly on TikTok And also, I think that it is really just coming from these generations of like, we don't know how to be in community. Like, we don't know how to be vulnerable, hold each other accountable, just generally. So it's just so interesting to me that we're like, yeah, I won't take my friends as serious as my partner. Obviously, there are situations where I have to be there for my partner. There is some sense of priority, but I do think that they're just as important and require a similar level of investment if you want the quality that you're looking for. We're really going all in on these romantic relationships where it's like, y'all not even getting bare minimum in some of these romantic relationships. So it's just wild to me that we hold the romantic relationship at such a high regard and then kind of like poo poo the. That's so funny. You asked me about that word earlier today.
I could not remember it for the life of me. I'm like, wait, what do you say? Poo poo?
And we poo poo platonic friendships, but everybody's so damn lonely, right? And it's like, I also, and we'll also talk about, I think, I'm gonna let Brandy comment, but we'll also probably talk a little bit too about having different friends for different things as well.
Yeah, you know how I feel. Every time the girls get up there and be like, my man, my man, my man, my man is about, yeah, okay. Okay. You
Mm-hmm.
better hope you marry him and take him to the grave. Because even then, you gonna need somebody. Hello? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. And I think maybe for some people, there's this idea like they can't conceptualize being vulnerable with more than one person. Because, hey, I'll be the first to tell you, vulnerability is hard. I remember Danielle, the one who wrote Fighting for Our Friendships, she
Mm-hmm.
was like, it's not vulnerability if you're not afraid. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not afraid to lose something. Because I used to be like, oh, girl, I'll talk about all my stuff. I lay it on the table. I don't care. But then I had to sit up and I said, yeah, I'm not gonna tell my friend that they hurt my feelings. Like, I'm a more
Right.
evolved version of myself, and now I'm able to have some of these conversations. But a less evolved version of myself would not have been because I don't want you to leave me. For some people, they can only think about it in a romantic sense. Like they can only be like that with one person, but I think you're at such a loss
Right.
if you're limiting yourself to only allowing one person to be like your whole world. And how lonely must that be, or how like
Right.
exhausting that must be to be one person's everything.
Right.
Hello, guys. I think that also goes back to like media too, right? Of like you see this or like you know, rom com girl. Yeah, romance queen. That's me.
Same.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think in media, there's a lot of this like, oh, you're my best friend. You're this, you're that, you're my everything. And it's like, yeah, that's cute to say, but are they really?
Right.
My partner, my boyfriend, my bookie, I love him so bad. Oh, I love that man. But like,
Shout out to
he is,
Christian.
shout out to Christian. Shout out my nigga Gucci. But yeah, he
Period.
is a part of my like world. He's a part of my community. But again, he's only a part of it. Where would I be if I didn't have Mariah? Where would I be with just Christian? If I didn't have Christian, where would I be with just Mariah? It's okay for multiple people to really take up these different spaces. I think what we're going to transition to now is really knowing who to lean into for what. That is so important and saves you so much heartache and just like despair, I guess you can say, and also a lot
Right.
of disappointment. You should also be willing to ask of people first. If they disappoint, then you do what you do. But it is your job to open that door and ask, can you provide this for me? I would
Right.
like this from you. I love you. And again, requires what? Vulnerability. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it just depends.
Yeah, I struggled. That's something I very much still struggle with. Because to your point, right? Like same way. Like I'm thinking like, oh yeah, vulnerability. I overshare like a motherfucker. That is my shit.
See, my whole life story.
But
Come on.
that was not vulnerability. I think to your point, I still to this day, Brandy knows this. Brandy gets the voice notes of being able to tell people how I'm feeling because I have a lot of work to do around how people have received me and made me feel growing up about how I just existed and how I expressed myself. So it is a lot of vulnerability for me to be able to do that. I struggle to do with Brandy sometimes still, right? Like knowing though that she loves me. Like I know that it'll be fine and we'll talk about it and it'll work out. It's still scary for me to initiate that. And I'm the initiator. Ain't that a bitch? I am the initiator in general when it comes to connecting with people and trying to set things up. But when it comes to putting my needs on the table and being able to verbalize that and to also understand it, I think it's really important to understand your needs and wants. And it can be really hard to verbalize that and figure out how to go about understanding that. Because for me, I'm very emotion based, I'm a feelings based person. I have a strong intuition that'll come up sometimes, but I don't always know how to translate it. To translate it and then communicate it is a lot. And that it all falls under the umbrella of vulnerability. I think I try to come back to the thought and Brandy's point that fear of losing people really be whooping ass. That fear of rejection and abandonment feels like death. It feels like you are getting kicked out of the tribe. And when you're kicked out of the tribe, evolutionarily, that's you're dead. And so I think have struggled with that piece because it's like overcoming that fear and losing more people when I already have such a finite circle is what holds me back from speaking what I need and want and how I'm actually thinking and feeling about things. I try to come back to this thought that if they can't receive and show up for me in that way, then do they really need to be here anyway? Like, are they really for me anyway? And if they have a negative response to how you're feeling and flip out, is that the kind of person you want anyway? And I get it. It's easier said than done, of course, but that's why vulnerability is so hard.
And sometimes I think you really got to do it scared. Like, and to your point of like, is this the kind of person? That's a scary thought because what if you are met with that rejection? That hurts. And it's the cycle of, okay, so what do you do when you're hurt? Are you going to turn it into anger and be like, well, fuck you, guy? Or are you going to tell them, hey, that didn't feel good to me at all, actually? And you have to determine what your limit is, right? I think with me and Mariah, it's often just a conversation. For me, when I'm in relationship with people, I'm seeking understanding above all else. Like I'm not trying to see who's right, who says, who did that, blah blah blah. But understanding is the more like it's the priority here. Because if I do something that hurts you, why would I want to do that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm changing. I'm going to do the work so that I don't do that again. Is that a mature thing to do? Yes. And not everybody is going to be able to meet you there. But I think the piece that we're kind of dancing around here is there's a major part of self-worth that like plays a large part in like friendships, relationships, how you perceive things. Like, am I worthy of like these strong friendships? Am I worthy of having, and you know, you may not get there immediately, but I'm pretty sure there's like some self-worth pieces tied to it. And I talk to Mariah all the time about how there's so much self-doubt and things I need to work on too. I think that's just like part of the 20s too, of like really getting in, doing the nitty-gritty hard work. Yeah, it's hood. Yeah, for sure. But like it's necessary for like right now if we want to raise fully formed adults, and that means we have to do the work on ourselves or else it just comes up.
That was a great segue into your self-worth, self-doubt, because I just put out a Substack newsletter today about self-doubt. I recognized in typing that up that it actually I always perceive things as like I'm worried about how others are perceiving me, how others are thinking about me, and actually it's really me. I'm the problem. Like when
I'm the
we
biggest op.
self-doubt. Yes, I am my biggest op. Let's highlight the self and self doubt. I ended up typing out a list of things that have been going through my head in regards to this presentation I have to give on Thursday. And I typed out a whole list of the thought spiral on the Substack, just bearing my soul to y'all. I realized I had more relief when it happened. So, this is why writing shit down and getting it out of your brain can be helpful. But not only that, I was reading it back and I realized nobody has ever said any of those things to me. I quite literally came up with that myself. When I think about the things about self and the fear and the how I'm showing up and like if I'm good enough, right? Like this good enough stuff comes up all rampant through that. Um, I realized that people have not said really fucked up things to me since I was probably like 20 in toxic work environments. That's probably the last time I experienced somebody really saying some sideways shit to me and haven't since then. So it's like at now it's me. Yeah, it might have
Mhm.
started somewhere else, but a lot of it is what I've internalized to mean about self and how I feel about self now. And it's I think it's helpful to, again, awareness is the first piece, right? Like I think I'm finally able to start this journey of healing self-doubt and self-worth in a more targeted way, right? Because I think we're aware, right? Like I hype y'all up all the time on this podcast. I'm very much like, do it for you, take care of you, all these things. You got to love yourself, relationship with self. That's like what this podcast is. And I think I'm able now to really look at self doubt and self work in a targeted way because the awareness that it is me. Like I'm actually not super worried about how people are perceiving me. It's more about the meaning that I'm making about how people are perceiving me. So
Mhm.
it's quite literally just negative thoughts about self.
The way that you were explaining that to me, and even how you were saying the last time you can remember it's like 20 and lower, but people are planting these seeds and they're sprouting weeds. So it's really a matter if you're thinking about
I'm watering that
yourself,
bitch. I'm holding the
you
canister.
just but instead we gotta get down and say, okay, this is not true. I am not this. You really have to pluck out those weeds and put down seeds. You really have to do the words of affirmation, pour into you so that you can see the flowers bloom. If you want a beautiful mind, a beautiful heart, a beautiful soul, you have to do the work. And that does not happen overnight. It takes time, but it also takes time to build back up that relationship with yourself. In a perfect world, we'd be plucking weeds all day. Just get that out of here, get that out of here. But like, how do we, and I guess this is part of my question to you too, Mariah, of like, how do we do that in our day-to-day world
Mm-hmm.
where we're still facing like this self-doubt and like this anxiety and just all these more negative emotions, and how do we do it
Right.
anyway?
Right. I think, oh, so funny. I had a question for you, but you turned it back on me.
Ooh, no reverse.
Reverse, reverse. Um, I think it's so. Whew, this is a hard question because I think there's two ways that I'm thinking about this because this is a big question. I think there are these core pieces of self that we can tackle, and I think there are bigger ways to kind of do that. So I'm going to write core self, these core concepts and deep work, and then daily surviving. Like I got to make it through the day to day. Like I can't hit the inner child every day. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
So I think splitting it up to these deep work and reflection periods, and then this day to day, I'm just trying not to off myself.
Yeah.
That's the daily self work and love that we can do. These are two categories. When I think of deep core work, like we've talked about the nervous system and regulating that, I actually think that's a domain you can work on either deeply or day to day. Regulating the nervous system is a huge piece to meeting self where you are moment to moment and helping you cool down. Daily work can look like taking 5 minutes before that call or that meeting that you do not want to go on to just shut it down. Close your eyes, sit in silence, and breathe. You got some noise canceling headphones, earplugs, whatever it got to be, completely go sensory deprivation so that you can just take a moment to breathe and let whatever thoughts are filtering through pass and go so you can recenter. Those are ways you can give back to yourself so that you can pour into yourself, show up better and more centered. The flip side of that would be longer periods. When I think of nervous system work, I think longer periods of time doing that. That can look like a longer meditation, maybe a longer breath work session. I think daily work, affirmations, find a mantra that works for you. I tend to flip through mantras, keep a journal of mantras that you can say to yourself. Some are going to feel good some days and some are not. So start collecting the ones that feel good and then don't be surprised if the next week it doesn't feel as good. You can kind of filter them out. One that works for me is I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. That's directly hitting the self-worth piece. I'm trying to think of another one that I like. That's the one quick to the point, helpful in the work that I feel like I'm doing with myself right now. Do you have any
Hmm.
that you filter through that might be helpful?
In the mornings, like I've been telling you, Mariah, I've been really intentional about going outside and taking inventory of what it is that I'm experiencing. What is it like? How am I feeling? But on the other side, like I may spend 5 minutes doing that, and then the other 5 minutes, I'm just in nothing. Just like, ooh, don't ask me what I'm thinking about. I'm gonna say birds. But then after that, I do yoga. In the yoga session, she's telling you some affirmations. Today, my affirmations were I am flexible, I believe in myself, and I will have a good day today. Um, and I think that really helps you to center yourself in some of these places, especially like, I will have a good day. Like, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to have a good day. Something might happen that might last 2 minutes, but I'm not letting it take up more than that 2 minutes. It might be 5 minutes. Cause sometimes I be pissed off. It's true. Ex boyfriend, I be pissed off. So, but being able to like saying, okay, that's enough. Like I've had that time. Like allowing myself to feel that, and then being like, okay, on to the next thing. And also, I think I said this, but like the I am flexible piece of like, okay, if something doesn't go the way that I thought it would go, again, us Virgos, that routine, very important. So when things are out of the routine, I'm just like, what? But reminding myself I can take the time to need to be frazzled, but then we got to jump back in. We can't just continue to let ourselves freak out for the rest of the day. I've been doing the Apple journal as well, which has been nice. It allows you to talk about what you're feeling. My affirmations for last week were I am capable, I work hard, and I am ready for today. As you see, there's a constant theme of I need to be ready for this day and whatever it comes and whatever comes with it. It's been going pretty good so far. Really being intentional about pouring into you because life will not make time for you to pour into you. You have to make that time.
Right.
So I think that could be a point in that bucket of being willing to make the time, even in the day to day. It may not happen every day, but that's okay. Like
Right.
if it don't happen tomorrow, get back the next day, and that's okay. Just giving yourself that grace and knowing just because I fall off today doesn't mean I'm done. So
Right. And I think too, why daily work, like I know a lot of the concepts that we've talked about on the podcast have been very deep, like kind of heavy hitters of how to approach work with self. But I think the daily work is really important to highlight and the little things you can do because that's habit. Habit builds over time. It is extremely powerful because once a habit goes from you having to really think about doing it to it being part of your life, it really becomes integrated into who you are. And that's when you see shifts and real change. I think there's not enough immediate relief, right? So that's why I talk a lot about a deep core work, right? Because there's a lot of trauma or just like real life environmental stressors that are happening. The daily stuff might not feel like enough, right? And then you skip it. You're like, this ain't doing shit, right? But they do build up over time. And I actually think that one could argue that it's just as or more important than like this really focused, intentional, deep work that you're sitting down, reflecting on for an hour in therapy. Like those are different ways to do it in a longer format and targeted way, but we're always going to be healing. We're always going to be on this journey. Something else that Brandy said that came up for me was thinking about this external versus internal. And I think when I think of moving through a healing journey, I think for me, one of the goals is to, and this is kind of goes with that I am flexible, is like to stop letting the external environment have so much control over my internal state. It is so painful sometimes, and I wish that it didn't have so much impact. It makes sense why it does, right? And I think we could talk about a bunch of different philosophical reasons why external has so much control over the internal, but I actually think it needs to be the other way around. We should really be able to be unchanging internally sometimes. Obviously, I'm not saying you're not going to feel emotion, but the emotion is not going to take you out all the time. I think that's the goal. We can feel the thing and allow ourselves to feel the things without all the extra negative self talk, without crashing out and falling apart. It's hard. I've struggled with the concept a little bit myself because I've gone through, Brandy knows, these periods of depression, right? Where it's really intense. And just like once I'm feeling better, terrified that when is the ball going to drop again? When is it going to happen again? And I feel like I'm finally in a place now where I've started to really accept my emotions for what they are and sit with them and give my time to sit with them and process them instead of trying to avoid them, trying not to feel them, trying to skip hop jump around them, because honestly, I end up depressed anyway. It all comes crashing down anyway. So that was a really long random tangent.
Still very valid, internal, external. Ultimately, sometimes you have to be willing to be like, okay, we felt this, woosah. But it takes time to get there. Don't be afraid to start. For me, I have a big problem with consistency where I'm like, I'm not being consistent. I'm not doing this. Like even like my like wake up, stand in the sun, do yoga. I hadn't done that in a week. But then today I was like, no, I need that. I'm noticing I'm a better me when I'm pouring into me. That comes with time. It really is the small pieces that make large impacts.
Right. We're so used to quick fixes. We're used to dopamine hits. That's what we want. It doesn't work long term. Change is uncomfortable. Your body and mind are going to tell you and make you feel all the things so that you do not change because it wants to stay with what it's familiar with. It's alerting you when you're trying to change and do things differently that, hey, like you don't do this. What are you doing? What's going on,
Yeah,
Bookie?
what is
What's
this?
happening? That's not what you want. I think our last episode was all about change and or last episode. I don't know. It's fine. Just how to deal with change and why change is so hard and how it is a choice to change because even if you're not changing, you're still choosing. Even if you're on autopilot, you're still choosing.
It's
That
still a
means you're
choice. And
yeah.
yeah, in one of my last therapy sessions that I had, and it pertained to the friendship piece, I was telling her, I don't want to make the wrong choice. I don't want to close the door because what if? And then she was like, but it sounds like she's made a decision and you still waiting to make the right decision is you making a decision. And it's just like, oh, well, guys, you're not wrong. So it really life requires you to be an active participant and make choices and be intentional about the choices that you're making. So you might have to ask yourself, what choice am I making? Like what am I doing? Like the time is gonna pass regardless. So do you want to be a more active participant in your life or do you want to be a more passive participant? Knowing that going with the flow and letting life take you where it might, that's your choice at the end of the day, which may be a harder pill to swallow.
Right. And also, like, we have to remind ourselves that we can't choose for others. We can only choose for ourselves. And I think I do personally, like, in come talking about some of the friendship stuff, I will think through things and decide how people are thinking or feeling or what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing. Part of it is because my intuition is that girl. And even if I'm right some of the time, it doesn't matter, right? The thought of what somebody else is doing, why they're doing it, what they're thinking about a situation, even if your thoughts about that are correct, it doesn't matter until they bring it to you and say it to you. And it is your choice to have that conversation. I think we need to I'm talking to myself right now. Be a little bit more direct, talking to people and telling them what's up and asking people what we're feeling. If you are suspecting something or anxious about something, you just got to ask. That's the
Are
only
the
way to
vibes
know.
off at Applebee's? Like, I don't even want to tell all my secrets, but sometimes you gotta ask, are the vibes off at Applebee's? Am I picking up on something? Even when Mariah was here,
Mm-hmm.
I had to ask her a couple of times.
Right. A couple
Like, but
times,
that's
it
part
was
of
one time.
it one time. I ask that a lot to Christians, so I mix up things. Sometimes you gotta just ask. Like I am also a
Mm-hmm.
chronic overthinker. Like just I pick up on all the little small things. You slammed the door a little hard. Like you good? But I think being able to open that door, you gotta be mindful because you don't want people being like, "Damn, I can't breathe." Christian does
Mm-hmm.
that. He does say that. He'd be like, "I can't," but I'm like, "You can breathe, but I know how you breathe." So, hello.
Well, right. The heartbeat, the rhythm, it changed. But on the flip
I feel
side
it.
of what we're saying is that if people are coming to you and asking, do not lie. That's so easy to do is to be like, nah, nothing, nothing, right? Because you're not ready to have the conversation. But it needs to be not no, not nothing, because one, you're denying self and you're not being honest with the person you care about. So you it needs to be fixing, and I need to work on this, of either answering and being honest, because there is an emotion. Like, I'm gaslighting people. I'm totally gaslighting people by saying nothing's wrong. So I'm trying to work on,
Isn't
even
that
with my
crazy?
partner. It is
Even
crazy.
with partnership and friendship, any
Hmm.
relationship you're in, they're not picking up on something and they're like, oh, okay. And when you come back and be like, you know what? Yeah, I wasn't feeling it. I'm trying to do
Right.
my way currently is just being like, I'm not ready to talk about it just yet. I'm
Yes.
feeling something. I just need a minute. Like, just give me a second to be able to like kind of sift through. It's funny because the themes, this is why I don't get how people be like friendship, relationship, question mark. What you do in your
Actually,
friendship is
there's an equal sign there.
hello. Like what you
Equivalent
do,
to.
it will show up. No matter how hard you try to hide it, it shows up. It's really important to be honest with the people that you love because they love you and they want you to be you. I think that really helps you to be more open and more honest with the person. And that is the key to a stronger bond, a stronger relationship, being honest with people. But that
And
requires
you're
being
also
honest with yourself
practicing
too.
who you choose to share it with. But when we're talking about people who like friendships and vulnerability and loved ones, we got to learn how to talk our shit.
Yeah. And it doesn't come overnight, but like it does start with one conversation. It does start with just telling one person. And like with doing that with Christian helps me to be more honest in my friendship with Mariah. And vice versa. Telling Mariah helps me to be, oh, that's what I was saying. Okay, it's back. So me and Mariah, we both do this thing separately, not together. That we like, damn it, it's gone again. No, no, no. Oh, we're like, I don't want to have this conversation with you because I want to figure this out for me first. And I had that so bad with Christian. I still got it bad with Christian. Christian would be like, Brandy, you literally don't have to do that. I am here to sift through the things with you. Even if it's some childhood shit that's coming up, I will sit with you and work through that with you. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I got it. I got it. And then I find myself having to just do the same thing with Mariah, where she may isolate a little bit more. And she's like, I just have to work
Oh,
through it.
that's
And I'm like, no, I'm
And it
here
do be
for you.
child. It really
It
do,
do.
because the way that works for me is like I've done so much work and reflecting and living in my own head in childhood. I think about the way that I grew up and like the strong mismatch in like who I was, I think at my core and my being, with how I was being parented. And I just was like with myself all the time. So I had to filter through emotions and feelings by myself. This is the first time having a partner and meeting Brandy where there's this offering of working through it with someone else. My first instinct is to isolate for a few different reasons, right? One, because that's what I know. Two, I fear that I'm not going to be heard or understood. And three, it's just like, am I tripping? Like, then the self doubt pieces come in, right? Like, this is not valid. This is not going to go over well. And I've had experiences in childhood, not just from my parents, from kids I grew up with, right? Like, where it's just complete invalidation of feelings. So, yeah, self isolating was the way to go.
I never thought of it like that. I knew that I did it, but I never thought it was because I didn't have a safe space.
Hmm.
That transition from not having the safe space to now having multiple safe spaces to iron out things with people is it's a doozy. It is a doozy.
Newer people, right? Like, so it's like I'm working on it with you, and I know you love me. So, new people, it's like,
Girl, forget about it. I'll see you in a couple years if you
right.
last that
But then we
long.
all want love and connection. So, it's a paradox.
Well, we talking some real stuff. I love that for
We
us.
We really, like, wow, that was an hour. That
I
was a
know.
whole
We're so
hour.
good. Like for
Yeah,
us, we be jumping, we be here, there, everywhere, but we did really
right.
good. I'm proud of us.
I knew that was gonna happen though. Like, I knew we was gonna get on here and it was gonna be like, have y'all done this before? Yes, we've had professional voice notes for practice.
Hey, you didn't lie. The memos we be sending like 30-minute memos every day.
Right. We
Not
have a phone
necessarily
call
all.
like a day, essentially.
Yeah, basically. We really don't love phone calls, but we love a good memo. Memo me,
Mm-hmm.
please. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So if you slide
Wow.
into my DMs, memo, please. No, I'm kidding. You can do whatever.
No, actually, say please send me a memo. I don't want to have to sit there and read.
Okay, so I have a final question. Could be a two-part question before we close out and wrap up the conversation. Do you have any recommendations for making connections? Whether that be you're kind of interested in someone, navigating a new space, or just the average bear who is lonely and is like, what the fuck in adulthood?
Okay, I would
Brandy
say,
is the friend queen.
whoa, whoa, whoa. I would
She
say
has hoes in different area codes. I don't want to hear that. In
I love
different
all my
area codes, you
Sims
should see her
equally.
find my.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I gotta make sure all my Sims are good. I check it every night. I'm like, "Mwah. Good night, Bookie Bears." But so I would say one, don't be afraid of like, it's a big one, but don't be afraid of rejection. Some people may not rock with you right away, and some people may rock with you a little too hard. And you like, whoa, hold on. I was not asking for all of that.
I've had that too. Wow.
Yeah. You don't want to be on either extreme of like,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anybody, and then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna cling on to you really tight. It's like, no,
Right.
please don't do that. The
Correct.
second thing I would say is definitely don't be afraid to talk about your interests. My coworker, well, he's my friend. We were talking about. We actually have very similar thoughts on like friendship and like the intentionality behind friendship. So don't be afraid to get a little deep. I'm not saying go and share your whole life story, but I'm learning that it does require just a sprinkle. Don't do it beyond you being comfortable. Don't do it to the point where you're like, ooh, I think I overshare and I feel weird. But don't be afraid to
Right.
put just a little bit more of yourself out there. And then from there, it opens up all these doors. Now, my coworker friend and my boyfriend play games together, like, and they're in this like Discord where like there's a bunch of them because even me talking to my coworker about it, he was
There's a
like,
bunch of
you
them
know,
just sounded so funny to me. I got what you were saying, but it just sounded funny. There's a bunch of them there now. Sorry.
now the besties, like they really enjoy playing their games together, stuff like that. So you just never know. I think the smallest information can open up the biggest doors. Don't be afraid to lean into the people you already have too. Like, especially right now where I'm living, I'm back in New Orleans. I went to undergrad in New Orleans. So like my line sisters, one of them, she lives literally down the street and she was texting me earlier today. We were supposed to have a plant date. I was sick. I'm feeling better, Mariah. Can you hear me? I'm feeling
Yes,
I can breathe. I can
I see.
taste.
This is also. It was great to wait to do it.
Exactly. So feeling better. But even now, like she'll
Can you
text me
taste?
it's like I can.
Oh, beautiful.
She texted me and we hang out. We may not hang out as much as we want, but being able to connect back to older connections to make stronger connections in the future, if that makes sense.
No, that's a really good point. Like, I don't think I've ever thought about that, right? I think people think when you move through phases and places and you don't really talk and you fall off, especially if like they're from a work environment, a previous program or school or class you took, we think, oh, we don't talk no more. So now it's awkward and weird. But it's like, oh, you can, if you was vibing with the person and nothing really bad happened, that's totally fair game to put yourself out there.
Yeah, as long as there's no bad blood, most people are willing, especially 20 somethings. Like, I find we all have something in common. Like, it really is just a matter of like talking. And I think COVID did a number on us, and we don't like to talk to people in real life anymore. But to really have those stronger bonds and connections, you have to talk to people.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
so true.
ultimately, put yourself out there. I'm not saying go up to the people at the bar, but if you frequent the bar and there's somebody that's also frequenting the bar, hey girl,
And
let's have a drink. I think it's so funny because if you ask me, like, rejection is like one of my biggest fears. But
mm-hmm.
also, I just be like, girl, what she gonna say? No. Okay. I'll think about
Right.
it for like 2 seconds, but then I'll move on. I'm like, oh, okay.
All right, and then the final question is any final thoughts on building up your relationship with yourself? Like any tips or suggestions for that or things that you've done that might be helpful?
Just as you spend time with a partner, a friend, make sure you're spending time with you as well. That is so overlooked. Not the you time where you spend late at night because you can't sleep and your brain is going. Like, no, wake up, like, go outside, go on a walk, really get in touch with you. Tell yourself that you matter. And if you need to, tell your friends, hey, I'm having a bit of a hard time with this. You'll be surprised. Me and Mariah have these conversations all the time about us. Like,
It's true.
and
We're
it's
actually very
comforting.
narcissistic. No, I'm kidding.
You know, hey,
It's a
hey.
lie. We're not.
If it ain't us, then what
I
are we
promise.
talking about? Being able to talk through these things with people that love you, care about you. I was just talking to one of my other besties yesterday about all of this, and she was getting pissed off at me. She was like, you need to tell people no, because if you don't tell people no, then what are you telling yourself? You're overexerting yourself, you're doing all these things that are not sustainable. What does that lead to? Burnout, chronic illness, all the things that are not fun. If you don't have the courage to start standing up for you, borrow some of your friends' courage. Talk to your friends. Your friends don't play about you. They may play about a lot of things, but they not gonna play about you. And if you ain't got friends that don't play about you, come talk to me. We got bigger fish to fry.
Bacon brand book reviews
That's
at,
me.
well, sorry,
I
at
lab.
Bacon brand. Yes, I will
And if you want
have all
vanilla
of
bean paste,
Brandy's. Yes, I have one of her brownies left in my fridge that I'm about to fuck up after this.
I'm so excited for you.
Yes, I will link the social medias that Brandy cares about that you could reach out if you have any questions on friendships or if you want to buy her vanilla bean paste. Because wow, I mean, she oof, in high demand.
Apparently,
And
girl, that's what they say. I'm just here vibing. Sorry. Okay.
so yeah, any final thoughts?
This was amazing. I loved it. This felt very natural. This is just us being us. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on to the pod and to be able to talk to all of you guys. I'm looking forward to hearing good things, and who knows? Maybe I'll be back. I
Yeah,
better be
no,
back.
definitely.
I
Definitely.
got other things
Yeah,
to talk
absolutely.
about, guys.
I was just about to say this is just the beginning. It's very grateful to have you on. I will be bringing her back. If you like this episode, leave some comments, any follow-up questions, any thoughts. Keep it cute. No, because I don't play about her
Because I
either.
fight. I
Um
don't play about her. You better ask somebody. Ask that one girl that blocked me on TikTok. Thank you. Anyways.
That's so funny. Wow. Okay. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this episode, leave us a 5-star review and rating wherever you listen to your podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We will definitely be bringing Brandy back, and I will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.